Recording in progress.
Today, playing with taboo. A toy bag's guide to playing with taboo by Melina Williams Hoss. I am Sir Raven, CEO of BLX. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. Appreciate you. I talk about being an entrepreneur, CEO, leather and queerness, the LGBTQ community, kink and BDSM. I talk about wellness and I do art. I have community conversations. I talk about sex and not having shame when it comes to sex. I talk about how leather, kink, and BDSM is not just for straight, cis, thin people, especially like white heterosexual men or women, or theys. That's what I do. Today, I am going to be talking about a book, The Toy Bag's Guide to Playing with Taboo. This book was written by Molina Williams, who now is married to her master, happily married. So now she is Molina Williams Hoss. It's a small book, about 100 pages. And I have to say, there's some trigger, because I understand I have to say these kinds of things to prepare people. What I may be talking about maybe a little, because we're talking about taboo, right? So when we are talking about taboo, what are we talking about? After the table of context, it talks about a warning. In the book, it has a warning. The warning says, a warning about how one should understand that all BDSM carries risk, which includes emotional injury and sometimes injury to one's relationship, which it does, and to play with taboo carries even more. In this book, Molina Hoss says of this book, it is not or should not be held liable, that meaning her and the publisher, Greenery Press, and then goes into the introduction. The more of taboo, and it gives a description of the origins of taboo, or tapu, Tapu. Western settlers, as they came across other cultures, took the word tapu, which meant that certain things were sacred. So you couldn't, for instance, it was sacred and you shouldn't handle weapons certain times, or indulge in certain foods in a certain time, or guidelines in around sex, right, at a certain time. And those things were sacred. But 1777, tapu became a restriction, right, of women and bleeding and around, like incest and these kinds of things. And restrictions, it became something around restrictions. And, what you could and could not do. And it became very rigid. And it went from tapu to taboo. So in this book, Molina says that some of the taboos that we play with, I'll read a couple of lines from the book. Here it is. Slavery, genocide, degradation, warfare, racism, hatred. These are ugly realities of life. Why would you want to plunge yourself headlong into the darkness of the darkest parts of human psyche for sexual gratification? Then after that, there are chapters talking about the different kind of situations that she likes to play with. She mentions, well, actually, she says, for many years, it was thought that if someone interested in BDSM, that they had a mental disorder, which is true. It was in the book of diagnosis, mental health. But it's not a mental disorder because you have to give consent to do the things that we do. You have to negotiate said things that are going to be done to you when you play with taboo. Most definitely, when you're dealing with taboo, you have to be more discerning, because we're dealing with things that can really like fuck you up for real. Race play is something that can be very triggering, very harmful to someone. You may think, does the person really think those things about me when you're dealing with race play? If a person and you are doing a race play scene, you might think, does this person really believe the harsh things that they're saying about me? The person doing those things may think, do they really think that I believe the harsh things that I am saying to them? We have to know that we're fulfilling a fantasy. For some, fulfilling that fantasy is sexually gratifying. Do I really believe these things that you may be saying to a person is true? No, I don't, because we're dealing with a fantasy. We're dealing with a role playing. We're not really dealing in a reality in sorts. In this book, she does ask questions. Sometimes people have fantasies around the church, right? You will see many a fetishist or many a pro-dom wearing a nun's uniform, right? You may have a church fantasy. There are times that, and let me get back to the race play thing real quick. There are times when I'm out in public or at a party and men would come up to me and call me mistress or my Nubian goddess. It's a joke that Black women talk about how white men love to call you the Nubian goddess or these kinds of things. And what's really happening is, one, I didn't consent to be called that. And two, I always believe they are playing out some plantation fantasy they may have in their head. I'm all for it, but we have to talk about it, and I may have to get paid handsomely for that to happen. I don't have a problem calling you names. you know, it's a fantasy. I didn't consent to it. So those instances, they're fulfilling a thing and I have to check them, and then that may become another fantasy in their head. If it's consensual, then fine. I can get with it. So when we play with Taboo, we're playing with race play, church, like religious iconography, playing with rape, fantasizing about being raped, playing like daddy girl or daddy boy, playing animals, all the things that people look and think, oh my God, I can't believe you would want that. That is so taboo. And yes, it is. People have to consent to it. People have to negotiate around it. And the negotiation that she does talk about in this book, even though it's very small, she talks about really negotiating what's going to happen. Because going deep and dark can be a bit dangerous. She gives examples of her playing with taboo in this book, which is very interesting because it's coming from a personal place for her. So I'll leave you with this in closing. We may be coming into the community of BDSM and kink, and you may be thinking, oh, I found my people. I am free. This is the most wonderful time of the year. And it really is. It's the most wonderful time of the year. But we also have to remember that when we're navigating the community, the same assholes that were out there, they're in here. So that's one thing. The leather BDSM kink community is not one large community. It is little city states. Think of it that way. Not everybody plays by the rules. And we do have rules, but not everybody plays by those rules. If you're interested in picking up the Toy Bags Guide to Playing with Taboo by Molina Williams, you should. It's interesting, and you will get a lot of things to think about. But remember, it may be very triggering. So you have to make your decision. The reading may be very triggering. She does get a little deep. And you have to decide if that kind of play is for you. Sometimes it's not for you, and that's cool. No harm, no foul. There's so many other things you can do within the community that could be liberating for you. So that's a Toy Bags Guide to Playing with Taboo by Molina. I hope you enjoyed the review. Next time I will be reviewing The Forked Tongue, a handbook for treating people badly by Flag. I wonder why do I have these kinds of books? Anyway, and this is a very good book, but that's next time. Until then, if you please, you can join our Patreon. It helps BLX pay Black and Brown kink educators, sex educators for the work that they do for BLX. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, tell your friends about it. And until next time,